Hi, I'll just give people a couple of minutes and then we can start. Hi everyone, hope you've had a good week so far. So today we're going to go through the answers for the questions we set on Tuesday for session 3. So I hope everyone had a go at them. If you did or if you couldn't get the right answer, I'll go through them. I'll go through a few mistakes that are common with these. Hopefully that'll help. Again, the Slido's open if you have any questions and I'll be able to go through them today as well. Okay, so the first question we had was ask for the user's name. If they are called Bob, print welcome Bob. So the first thing we need to get is the user input. So we'll use the input function and then ask the question, what is your name? I put /n on the end just because it looks a bit neater. So I'll ask for the name and then I will print welcome plus name. Input always comes through as a string, so I don't need to cast my name variable to a string because it's already a string. And then we'll try that out. So what is your name? So first that's just going to say welcome Bob, but now we want to only do it if they are called Bob. So we use our if statement. So if name, and then because it's not a variable, we want to see if it matches exactly, we have to use the double equals. So if name equals Bob, and we have to tab in once so it'll link with the if statement and we'll print welcome plus name. So if you ever get this syntax error, it's because I'm missing a colon on the end. So we run that. So it says welcome Bob. So I'll try it again with a different name. And it just doesn't do anything because I haven't used an else statement. It just looks for the one condition. If that's satisfied, it will execute the code underneath. Otherwise, it won't do anything. Okay, so on question 2, we're going to ask for the user's name. And if they are called Alice, we're going to print, if they're not called Alice, we'll print you're not Alice. So because we're getting a name input, I'm going to use this, reuse this code that we've just got, and make sure I uncomment it. So this time we're saying if name doesn't equal, so that's the exclamation mark and equals sign, Alice, we will print You're not Alice. And let's run that. So we'll ask for my name, and it's worked. So because the name I've input does not equal Alice, it's printed you're not Alice. If I try Alice, it does match, and therefore it just doesn't do anything again because we haven't put an else statement. Okay, so let's comment that one out. Next, we're going to ask the user for a password. If they enter the password QWERTY123, print you have successfully logged in. If they get it wrong, print password failure. So the first thing we need to get is an input. So I'll call this variable user guess because they're going to be guessing their password. And I will ask them the question, what is your password? Then I'm going to hard code the actual password variable because we've been told in the question that the password is QWERTY123. And now I'm going to ask if the user's guess is the same, so a double equals password, then I will print you have successfully logged in. Then I'm going to use an else now because if it isn't correct, it can only be incorrect. So if it is not correct, we will print password failure. And we shall run that. So what is my password? So I'll try the correct one first. QWERTY123. Perfect, that's worked. Now let me try something incorrect. And it's not worked. So that's how we first check that our variable is the same as the password and are using an else statement if the first bit of code is not executed. Okay, so number 4. Ask the user to enter a number. If the number is even, print even. Otherwise, print odd. Okay, so I'm going to ask the user to enter a number. So this time, so we can call the variable number just to make it simple. This time, because I'm going to get a number and I want to do some maths to it, I need to cast this to an integer. So when I ask for a number, I now need to cast the whole thing to an integer. And now we need to do a little bit of maths. So if for people that have tried to do this, what did you which mathematical operator did you use to work out if something was odd or even? And I'll just give you a second to answer that in the chat of what you used. Yeah, that's right. So you're going to use the modulus sign. So what we're going to ask is if the number modulus 2 equals 0, and what that means is if the number, when divided by 2, has no remainder, we know that that is going to be even. Else, so that the only other, if it's not even, it can only be so we'll input a number, we'll put an even number, perfect, and we'll try an odd number, perfect. And to make it a little bit nicer, we can say the number that they've input, but remember, because we're going to concatenate this to a string, we have to cast the number variable into a string. So we have string and it just looks a little bit nicer when you're testing your code. Okay, number 5. Ask the user for two different numbers. If the total of the two numbers is over 21, print bust, otherwise print safe. So, like in the question above, we're going to get two numbers. So we're going to call this number 1 and this number 2. And we can change this up a little bit. So we'll have, for the first one, please input a number, and then for the second one, please input another number. And now the maths comes in. So what we're trying to check is if the total of the two numbers is over 21. So if number 1 plus number 2 is greater than 21, then we can print bust. And if it doesn't do that, we'll have an else statement and print safe. So let's try it out and see if it works. So we'll enter the first number, which is 9, and the next number, which is 15, and we're bust. We'll try two lower numbers, and we're safe. So we know this little bit of code works. Okay, number 6, we're going to ask the user to enter the length and the width of a shape and check if it is a square or not. So how do we know if something is a square? Yeah, that's correct. So they have the same length and width. So that's a way we're going to be able to check this. So because we're getting a length and a width, we can use these and just refactor them a little bit to what we need. So we're going to call the first one length. We're going to call the second one width. And then we're going to ask them to please input a length and please input a width. And to check if it's a square, we have to see if the length is the same, so double equals the width, colon, print. This is a square. And then else, we can just tell them simply, this is not a square. And we can run that. So let's try two of the same. And it's worked, perfect. And let's try two different ones. And that is not a square. So both of our different scenarios work. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So to comment out code, which I know is a regular question we get, the first thing you have to do is you highlight all the code you want to comment out. And by comment it out, it means that your computer will not read it and it will not execute it. So what you have to do is highlight it all. And then if you're on a MacBook, press Command slash. If you're on a Windows machine, it's Control slash, and that will comment out all your code. Say you want to reuse this code now, you just do the exact same. So highlight it, do Command slash, and it will uncomment it for you. So it works both ways. Okay, number 7. Your company has had a great year and are going to offer a bonus of 10% to any employee who has a service of over 3 years. So we need to ask the user to input their current salary and years of service and print out their salary and their bonus, or no bonus if they're not receiving one. So we need the user to input their salary and years in service. So let's first get those. So we're going to ask the first question, what is your salary? And then the second question is the service. So how long they've worked for us. So we can ask, how long have you worked here? And then, so they're going to give a bonus to an employee who has a service of over 3 years. So that means if service is greater than 3, then we're going to print out their salary first. So and again, because it's an integer, we need to cast it to a string. And we're going to tell them, and your bonus is, and it's going to be 10% of their salary. So we can use maths here and do salary times 0.1, because 0.1 is the equivalent of 10%. So if your service is over 3 years, we're going to print out your salary, we've cast that to a string, and your bonus. And because we're doing some maths here, we're going to have to do the same thing and cast that to a string. Then we have our else. So if you haven't worked here over 3 years, we're going to just let you know a similar thing. So we're going to say your salary is, and you will receive no bonus. Okay, so let's try this out. So my salary will be £10,000 because it's a nice number, and I've worked here 4 years. So that's worked out. So it's given me my salary, which is 10,000, and my bonus, which is 10% of 1,000. Let me input a smaller value. Perfect. So we've seen that both elements of our code works. And lastly, we are going to take a whole number input. If it's positive, print out the number cubed, and if it's negative, print out half its value. So how did you work out if a number was positive? Correct. So you have worked out for this one that if something's positive, it has to just be greater or equal to 0. So the first thing we want to do is get an input. So we will have number equals, it's going to be an integer, so we need an int input, and we'll ask them to please input a number. So as people have said in the chat, if the number is greater or equal to 0, then we are going to print the number cubed. So if you remember from an earlier lesson, to cube something is you use the double, and that could be to the exponent of anything. So if you wanted to do it squared, you'd put 2. If you want to do it cubed, as we do in this case, we're going to put 3. Else we will do we're going to print the number divided by 2. So we can check this work. So we'll enter 5, which we know is a positive number. And if you have a look, I've spelled number wrong, but that's fine. It's picked it up for me, so we can just try it again. We'll try 5. And 5 cubed is 5 times 5 times 5, so we've got 125. We'll try with a negative number, and it's half that for us. Another way of writing this, you could have done number times number times number, and we'll try that again. We'll use the same number just to verify it's correct, and it's worked. So that's just two different ways to do the same thing. Okay, so that was section A. I hope you all managed that. And now we'll move to section B, where it gets a little bit harder and it used the whole of the lesson that we did on Tuesday. Okay, so we're going to ask for the user's name. If they're called Alice, we're going to print hello Alice. If they are called Bob, we're going to print you're not Bob, I'm Bob. That's our computer making a joke. Or else we're just going to print you must be Charlie. Regardless of whether you're Charlie or not, that's what we're coding in this time. Okay, so the first thing we need is the user's name. Again, as input is always a string, we don't need to cast this to a string. We can just ask, what is your name? And now we have our first if statement. So if the name equals equals, so that is checking is if the name is Alice, we can print hello Alice. Now we're going to use an elif statement because we've got another condition we want to check. So elif name is equal to Bob. We'll print you're not Bob, I'm Bob. And now we will use our else, which is going to be our catch-all. So if the name doesn't equal Alice or Bob, we're going to print you must be Charlie. So let's try the first one. So I'll try Alice. Okay, spell it wrong. So at least we know the last one works. Perfect. Let's spell it right this time. That's worked. And we'll try Bob. Okay. So we know that works. So if I put lowercase Alice, it won't work because the string, it will want to match it exactly. So if you have a capital letter at the beginning, you have to have a capital letter in your string that you provide. But if you remember the lower that we've used before, so you can format your name so that no matter what, it will. So if we have the formatted name as name.lower, we can make sure that these are all lowercase, and then it doesn't matter what is passed because we have lower here, it will change everything to lower. So let's see if it works. So I'm going to put Alice, and it didn't work. So let's make sure that our format name is working. So what I do is I'll just print out that to make sure is doing it. Okay, so I've worked out what I've done wrong. Why is this not working? And this happens to me all the time. I'll change something, then I'll forget to make it all the same. But again, it's a good learning lesson in case you ever come across this. Yeah, so DXVina's got it right. The if statement says name, not format name, so it's still looking at this. So I just need to update throughout what I want it to be checked against. And now let's try it. So let's use perfect. It is working now. So we'll try Bob, little you're not Bob, I'm Bob. So you've put Sharon's put how do you add the upper and lower? So if you just look at my code here, you need to make sure that you have these brackets on the end because without the brackets it won't work. So if you copy my code here, it should work because we've just tested it and we've seen that it's worked. So just make sure that you've got the name of the variable that you want to change to upper or lower. You've got the dot next to it, and then you're calling this function, and then you've got your brackets. Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. So we're going to ask the user to enter their age. So this is a multi-part question, so we'll go through each part. So the first thing we want to do is ask the user to enter their age. If they are younger than 11, print, "You're too young to go to this school." So as we need an age, we need int, again because it's a number, so if we're checking any maths it needs to be an integer, and then we're going to ask, "How old are you?" And we can just even put a little print statement above if you want, and just put school age eligibility, and then this is just telling anyone who has a look what we're going to do. So the first we want to do is, if they are younger than 11, print they are too young to go to this school. So our first if statement is, if age is less than 11, print "You are too young to go to this school." So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to test each part, because if I do all of it and then it breaks, it'll be more difficult to find out which is the error. So I'll test it bit by bit and build it up. So as you can see, the first part here is printed out our school age eligibility. We can even put a little /n on the end if we want to make it look a bit neater. How old are you? Okay, so I'll put that in 4. Perfect. I'll try again with 11. And it doesn't do anything yet because we haven't told anything to do with that age, but at least we know this statement works. As we're checking another condition, we'll use elif. So now we're going to do if the age is between 11 and 16. So that means if the age is greater or equal to 11, and we're going to use that and statement, and this is where some people have gone wrong before. They'll just put and 16. But what we need to do is you need to compare it to the variable. So you need to put and age, because you're comparing that, is less than or equal to 16. We can print "You can come to this school." And we'll test that. So we know the first one works, so I will say that I'm 12 and I can come to this school. Perfect. The next one works. Right, let's go to the next one. So if they are over 16, print "You're too old for this school." So we can use another elif. Age is greater than 16. Then we will print "You are too old for this school." And let's check that. So we'll say the 17. It works perfectly. We have our next elif statement. If they are 0, so elif age is equal to 0, print "You are not born yet." Okay, let me check that. I've put in that I'm 0. Oh wait, that's not worked. Who knows why this isn't working? And I'll explain to you in a second. Because you've been getting all the answers so far, so it's been a great Thursday. So the reason it's not working is, Chess Bobble's got it right. So the reason it's not working is because my code is read downwards by the computer. So if it satisfies this, it will just stop and print this and finish. So because 0 is less than 11, it gets to here and it just stops. So what I have to do is I'll have to put this at the top, and work downwards. Again, it's my first statement, so I'll have to change this one to elif. And now I can try it. So perfect. So it does work. So this is an important lesson that you need to make sure that you put the code that you want executed at the top, because that's the way the computer reads it. It reads it downwards. So yeah, well done. We've got some answers in the chat there. Okay, so number 3. Ask the user to enter the name of the month. If the user enters March, April or May, print is in spring. So I'm going to put the month is in spring. Otherwise, print I don't know. Okay, so let's start with that section and see if it works. So we know we need a variable called month because that's what we're looking to get. So month equals, and then we can ask the user what month is it, and the /n. Then we're going to ask, so then we're going to do our if statement. So if month equals March, and we will print month, and as month is a string, because input's a string, we don't need to cast it, we just need our plus sign, is in spring. So let's just test March. Perfect. So in the Slido, one of the questions we were getting was, why doesn't this work? And that's because when you're doing that, you're not comparing April or May to anything. You have to make sure that you put in month in front of them, because otherwise you're just stating them. You're just saying or April or May. You're not saying does May equal March, or does month equal May. You're just saying them. So you just need to make sure you have to add it to every single string you want to check. You have to state the month next to it. So we'll just check one of them. Perfect. We can try May. Okay, so what's the second part? So we're going to expand for the rest of the year. So summer is in June, July, August. Autumn is September, October, November. And winter is December, January, February. Okay, so we've got the code here. We just need to change it up. So we have 4 seasons. So if the month now is June, July, or August, we're going to change this to summer. If it is September, October, or November, it is going to be autumn. And if it is December, January, or February, it's going to be winter. We need to make sure that these are all elifs, otherwise it'll just check them independently, whereas we want them to check it as all one piece of code. And our last part of the question is ensure that when an unknown month is given, it prints I don't know. So if it doesn't factor into any of these that we've stated here, we will just do else print I don't know. Okay, so I'll run that. We'll try one from each one. So I'll try July. July is in summer. I'll try September is in autumn, and I'll try January. And it's in winter, and I'll just try a random string, and it doesn't know. So at least we know each part works. Let me just see in the chat. Someone said, this is my code, but it doesn't work. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy your code. We will comment mine out for the second. So again, remember you highlight it, you press Command / if you're on a Mac or Control / if you're on Windows. Okay, so we've got what month is it? That looks fine. If month equals March. So you've not said what's wrong, but we'll just print hello. I know, we'll just use this code up here. Okay, so again, you've put specific, you've put this as lowercase and this as lowercase. So if you're putting anything else that's lowercase, it has to match exactly. So let's have a look. If month equals March, right? So I'm going to say it's March, lowercase, because you've put lowercase. If I'd run that and put capital March, it wouldn't see it because it has to match exactly to the string you're stating here. So it's running fine for me. So maybe just make sure that you have the exact string matches. So if I check April, yep, that's working. And lastly, May, all lowercase, yep. So your code's working, you just need to make sure that what the month you're entering matches these exactly. Okay, so we're going to ask the user for two different numbers. If both numbers are even, we're going to print even. If both numbers are odd, we're going to print odd. Else, we're going to print the product of the two numbers. And the product is just doing the multiplication of them. So product is just timesing. Okay, so we're getting two number inputs. We're going to do some math. So that means we're going to have to get int input. And we're going to ask them to please input a number. And as we're getting two numbers, we can just copy and paste this and ask for a second number. Please input another number. Okay, and the first thing we want to do is check if they're both even. So we know how to do this because we've done it in the earlier question. So if number modulus 2 equals 0 and number 2 modulus 2 equals 0, then we are going to print, and we'll print these numbers are even. And now we have an elif because we're checking another statement. And we can use this same code here. But if a number is odd, the remainder, instead of being 0, will be 1. So if you think about 5 divided by 2, you get a remainder of 1. 7 divided by 2, you get a remainder of 1. So that is how you can check something is odd. So then we will print these numbers are odd. Make sure you tab in here, otherwise it won't read it. Else, so our last statement, we're going to do the product. And then we will print number 1 times number 2. Okay, so we'll do two even numbers first. So we'll do 4 and 8. Perfect, our first statement has worked. Now let's try two odd numbers. It's recognized that. And now let me do an even and an odd number, and it's times them together and given us 20. So we know that one is working. Okay, number 5. Ask the user to input two numbers. Decide which is the number of the highest value and print this out. So when I get questions like this, I try to think about it in kind of like English terms before I code it. So I think, how am I going to work out if the number, which is the number of the highest value? And the way I can do that is by seeing if, so if the number I've input is greater than the second number, then we know that's going to be higher. Else, we know it will be lower. So again, we need two numbers, so we can copy this code from above. So we'll check if number 1 is greater than number 2, we know it's the higher number. So we can just print number 1. And remember, number is going to be an integer, so we have to cast to a string. So we can say number 1 is the highest number. We can use an else here because if number 1 is not greater than number 2, then we can just put that number 2 is the highest number. So let's try this out. So I'm going to put the first number as 90 and the second number as 5. Okay, so that's because I've put this the wrong way around, which I regularly do. So let's try again. So before, the error I'd made is I'd put this sign, which meant if number 1 is smaller than number 2, but I want to know if number 1 is greater than number 2. So let's try that again. So I'll put a really big number, 987, put a little number, 5. 987 is the highest number. Perfect. Now let's try the second number is bigger and 70. So this one has worked. Okay, so your company has had a fantastic year and are now going to offer a bonus of 20% to any employee who has a service of over 7 years, a bonus of 15% to any employee who has a service of over 5 years, and a bonus of 10% to an employee who has a service of 3 to 5 years. So we're going to ask the user to input their current salary, the years of service, and print out their salary and their bonus, or no bonus if they're not receiving one. So what we can do is reuse our code from section A. So we'll copy that, input it here. Because it's all commented out, I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to press Command/ on my MacBook, but if you don't have a MacBook, you can do Control/ and it'll do the same. Okay, so we now have a few things that we have to add to it. So if you're an employee with a service of over 7 years, you're going to get a bonus of 20%. So let's change this to 7, and 20% is 0.2. Next, we can keep our code similar. So if you have a service of over 5 years, you're going to get 15% bonus. So we're going to change this to 5. So that means if your service is over 5 years, and we're going to have the salary as 0.15 because 0.15 is 15%. And what is next? So if has a service of 3 to 5 years, then we're going to get a 10%. Okay, so if the service is greater or equal to 3, and again so we can't just put 5 here, that won't work. We have to state the variable again. So and if the service is less than or equal to 5 years, because it can be between 3, so 3 can be 1 and 5 can be 1. So if your service is greater than or equal to 3 and the service is less than or equal to 5, you're going to get the 10%. And then again, we'll keep this as our else because if you don't fit any of these criteria, so if your service is not over 7, over 5, not between 3 and 5, then you're going to get nothing. So we'll keep the salary at £10,000 because it'll be easy to check if it's working. So, and I'm going to say I've worked here for 8 years. 20% of 10,000 is 2,000, so we know the first one has worked. Now let's check the second one. So we'll do 10,000 again, but this time I've worked here 6 years. Nice. That has worked. I've got my 15% bonus. My salary is again £10,000 and I've worked here for 3 years. And that means this has worked. Perfect. So we'll try it again with 5 years. And it's given me my 10% bonus. So that has worked. And then let's just try someone that's worked here for just 1 year. And it's worked. Okay. So now we're going to take the age and name of 3 people and determine who is the oldest and the youngest and print out the name of the and age of the oldest and the youngest. If all 3 names ages are the same, we're going to print that. Okay, so what we need is 3 names and 3 ages. So we'll do name1 equals input. What is your name? And then we can get age1. And this is going to be an integer, so we need an int input. What is, I'll print, how old are you? We know we're going to need this 3 times, so we'll just copy and paste it. Okay, so to find out who is the oldest, we need to know whose age is the highest. So if age 1 is greater than age 2 and age 1 is greater than age 3, that must mean that the name 1 is the oldest. So we can say name 1, you are the oldest at, and then we can say how old they are, but again it's a number, so we need to cast that to a string. Put in some spaces so it looks a bit better. For someone asking if they do section A and section B, yep. So when we set the questions, you do all the questions that we set. Okay, so if age 1 is greater than age 2 and age 1 is greater than age 3, we're going to print name 1 because that's the one related to age 1. You're the oldest, and then provide their age. Now we can do the same for age 2. So if age 2 is greater than age 1 and age 2 is greater than age 3, then name 2 is the oldest at age 2. And then the last one for the oldest, and we could just put a little comment here because if we want to split up our code, we can say oldest age, and that's just giving us a note saying what is happening in this little block of code. So if age 3 is greater than age 1 and age 3 is greater than age 2, then name 3. Okay, so now we've got the oldest age working. Let's see if it is working. So we can do Saf, who is 23, Jake, who is 24, and Sanj, who is 20. Okay, perfect. It's worked out that Jake is the oldest at 24 years old. Now we can do the youngest. So we can just put another little comment saying youngest age. So for the youngest age, if age 1 is less or smaller than age 2 and age 1 is smaller than age 3, then we'll print out you are the youngest. And again, so you need to remember that these two are two separate statements that are getting checked. So if I'd just done this, if age 1 is less than age 2 and age 3, it wouldn't work. So we have to make sure that you're checking your variable against both when you have an and on or an or statement. And as the code is going to be quite similar, we can just copy and paste. We have if age 2 is less than age 1 and age 2 is smaller than age 3, we'll change this to age 2 and 2. And then lastly, we have age 3. So if age 3 is smaller than age 2 and if age 3 is smaller than age 1, then name 3 is going to be the youngest and they've got the youngest. Okay, so we'll do again Saf, who is 23, Jake, who is 24, and Sanj, who is 20. It's picked both the correct ones up, so we're happy with that. We know that it's working. And our last question today, before I go on to Slido and check if you have any questions from today's lesson, all appropriate, I hope, we will go on to this last question. So, a school has the following rules for their grading system. If you get above 80, you're going to get an A. If you get above 60 to 80, you're going to get a B. If you get 50 to 60, you're going to get a C. If you get 45 to 50, you're going to get a D. If you get 25 to 45, you're going to get an E. And if you get below 25, you're going to get an F. So we're going to ask the user to enter the lessons and the marks for 3 lessons and print out the corresponding grades for the lesson. So the first thing we need to do, what I'm going to do is, because we're going to do this 3 times, I'm going to get a lesson. I'm just going to do 1 lesson, make sure it works. If it does work, then I'm going to expand it and do all 3 lessons. So lesson 1 is going to be a string, so we can just use input. Please input your first lesson. And then we're going to get the grade. So they're going to input a grade and we're going to give them the corresponding, maybe mark might be a better name for it. So we're going to get an input of a mark, which will be a numerical value, and we're going to give the user what grade it is. Okay, so we'll copy this, but we know that mark is going to be an integer, so we'll do an int. So if you want to ask questions, Tree Guy, you can just ask in the chat, ask away, we're watching. Okay, so the first one is if the mark is above 80, then we're going to give them an A. So if mark 1 is greater than 80, we will print for, and then we'll give them the lesson you have received oh no, we can tidy it up a little bit and we'll just put lesson 1 and then we'll just put the mark. So we'll put, so if they get over 80, it's going to tell them the lesson and the grade next to it. So we can reuse this a little bit, but we're going to have to change it up. So we need if the mark is less than or equal to 80 and the mark is greater or equal to 60, they're going to get a B. Then we move on to the next one. So if the mark is less than or equal to, we'll just do less than 60 or greater than equal to 50, you're going to get a C. Then this, just keep editing it for each grade boundary. And then our last one is just if your mark is less than 25, we will print that you've got an F. Okay, so let's run that. So maths, I got 80, and that's got a B. Perfect, I'll try it again. Just put another number in, and I got 54. And that is greater or equal to 50, so perfect. So now that I know this works for Mark 1, what I can just do is we can get 2 more inputs. My REPL is just saving. Okay. But if you're going to copy and paste code, you have to make sure that you change everything correctly. So, as we've been asked to get 3, we'll change this to 2 and this to 3. We can, and then we can use this. But again, if you are going to copy and paste your code, just make sure that you change everything to match. So all these need to be a 2 because this second section is checking the second lesson. And though this looks like a lot of code, this lesson we just want you to get used to using elif statements. Later on in the course, we get you to refactor this code into a loop. And then change the last one for 3. Okay, so I think I've changed everything there. Here I'm just going to print out a nice little statement saying this is going to be your report card. And now we can see if it's worked or if I've made any errors. So we'll have maths, I got 75. So here we can see I've forgot to change this. Again, this is the thing you've got to watch out for if you're going to copy and paste your code. So we'll stop that, start again. So maths, I got 80. French, I got 56. And science, I got 64. And there we go, I have my report card. So that's all the questions for today. I'll just pop onto Slido. I think Jake's been handling all the questions in the chat. Okay, so let's have a look at Slido. Okay, so I can't find where the questions are for the past lessons. Where can I find them? So if you go into the reply here, it's in the About section of Twitch. If you go onto Twitch, and you just scroll down, here are all the questions. This is where we're going to keep all the questions for everything. So if you just scroll down, there are the questions. Hi, is there a glossary somewhere of key terms and meanings that we can refer to? So currently there's not. We are looking at getting everything onto one web page, but currently we don't. So what I'd suggest is that you go back to lesson 1 and just write them down in your own notes so you'll be able to refer to them. Can you still get the certificate if you get some of the questions wrong? So it's really good that you've had a try. If you get any of the questions wrong, again, flag them up in here and me and Jake can help, or watch these videos back of the Thursday lessons where we go through all the questions and you can find out what you've got wrong and edit it so it's correct. In section B, question 3, could you use a dictionary? Yep, that would be completely fine. We just haven't got onto dictionaries yet. So we get onto dictionaries later on in the course, but if you already know how to do that, then yeah, keep testing, keep trying. Any questions could you use this? I just think have a go and try it yourself. In section B, question 2, could you do unusual I means indent if age is less than 11, if age is less than 0? I'm not quite sure what that one is, so I'd try it again because I don't know what double I print is or double I else is. What's the difference between welcome name and welcome plus name? There isn't one. I just prefer the plus so I can see my concatenation. Question 1 needs to respond with Bob, so why use name variable in if statement? I'm not quite sure what that one means. So with the question 1, we have to check that the name that the user inputs is the same as Bob, so that's why we have to use the name variable to make sure that it matches exactly to our string that is Bob. Is it a problem if I wrote at the first exercise, name equals Bob, name equals input, what is your name, if name equals Bob, print? No, that's fine. One thing you'll realize with Python and with this course is that there's multiple ways to do the exact same thing. So I'm fine with that. Okay. Next one. How do I undo a shadow ban? I'm not sure what a shadow ban is. If it's related to Twitch, it might just be due to the comments you're making. If they're not to do with the lesson, then it's kind of pointless them being there. So I'm not sure what a shadow ban is, but there you go. Is it a problem if I wrote, no, again, yeah. So you can do it however you want. As long as you're getting the right answers, that's fine. How do I do the quickly on all my text when I highlight it? So as I've mentioned throughout the course, you highlight your text like that, and then you press Command/ if you're on a MacBook, or Control/ if you are on a Windows. I don't follow question 4, going too fast. I did the following: number equals input, please enter a number. If number divided by 2, print odd, else print even. That's fine. Simple chain 88. It's disappointing that you're writing things like that, but that's, I suppose, part of the course. If you want to be saying things like that, then fine. Okay, so we'll just use this. Right, so question 4, going too fast, I did the following. So that's fine. If you think it's going too fast, this is the benefit of being on a video. You can just rewind it and watch it as many times as you like. Need more time to take notes when you talk, please go slowly. again, we only have an hour. We've actually overrun a little bit, so I need to make sure I can get as much content into the hour as I can. But again, it's a video, so you can pause and rewind and fast forward and do it as many times as you need to. Cannot see some of your screen on the right bottom. Sorry about that. Hopefully you managed to see it now. Do we do section B? Yep. You do all the questions. Question 7, section B, you missed the last part. Read all 3 same ages. Okay, so let's have a look at that. Okay, so you can just change. We'll just do it on one because it'd be the same on both, but elif age 1 equals age 2 and age 1 equals age 3, print you are all the same age. We can try it out. Age 1, okay. Not uncommented all the code I needed, so I'll uncomment that and try again. So we've got Saf, who is 24, we have Jake, who is 25, and we have Sanj, who is now 30. Okay, so we'll try again, at this time all the same age. So Saf is 13, Jake is 13, and Sanj is 13, and it's worked. So that is that section. There are a lot of questions. Do I have them to do them in 1 hour, or can I take them time? You can take as long as you want. We just try to make sure that we can get all the answers done on this Thursday lesson. But yeah, take as long as you want. As long as you get them done, that's the main thing. Can you show the code from the youngest age for the previous question again? Yep, I'll do that in a second. What happens if when we hand it in, there are some typos that make my code wrong? Do we still get the certificate? So take the time now to make sure that your code isn't wrong. If your code isn't right, then and you've had the time to change it, then we are unlikely to be able to give you the certificate, and if all the questions are not correct. If our code is not the same as the answers you give, but it runs correctly, is it still wrong? No, not at all. If you're getting the right answer, that is fine. I'm fine with that. You just, as long as you're making the effort and you're doing it, that's the main thing. If while lesson I'm only watching online lesson and understanding later and practicing properly all questions myself, then will I also get a certificate? Yeah, so what's going to happen is after the 10 weeks, we're going to put out a link, and we're going to put out a link, we're going to get all your REPLs, we're going to check your code, and if the code is right and all the questions have been done, we'll give you the certificate. So you've got from now up until the 10 weeks to get all of them done. So if you do them later and you're properly having a go, that's fine. If we leave the REPL commented out, yeah, that's fine, because we can uncomment it, we can check it ourselves, we can verify it, but as long as the code is there, that is fine, we'll be able to check that. Okay, so I think someone said, would age, so what I can do is I can show you what will happen if we do this. So what we can do is, right. So we have Sophia, who is 13, we have Jake, who is 13, and Sanj, who is 13. And there you go. So I do is just try it. I didn't know it would work, but there you go. So if you're ever asking questions, just try it out yourself. A lot of the times, like you'll see I get things wrong, it's because in programming, you spend a lot of time debugging your own code. So if you write a bit of code and it's wrong, that is completely fine. You don't need to worry about it. It's so hard to get everything done as I have schoolwork and I need to catch up. The answers are going too fast. Again, this is just a extracurricular course, so prioritize your schoolwork. This is just something to do additionally. So my advice would, if you have spare time, do it, but don't overwhelm yourself. Just do as much as you can. If you don't get it done, you don't get it done. It's fine. I'm using thonny.is. Is it okay? Never heard of it. Not sure what it is. But again, if you have all your code collected into one area that you can share with us, so me and Jake, though we don't have that, can have a look, then again, fine with me. I need to do this course for my career. Cool. If you want to be a software developer, if you want to do anything with IT, if you want to do anything with data, Python is perfect for this kind of course. So it depends what you want to do. But if you're interested in IT, technology, data, computing, anything like that, this is perfect for it. Okay, so we don't currently have any more questions on Slido. I'm just going to text Twitch to see if we have anything. And yeah, so someone's asked, is it next week there won't be any lessons? Yeah, so next week we will not be here at 10 o'clock on Tuesday and Thursday. So we're going to have a break. So it's half term, so go enjoy yourselves. You can spend that time if you want catching up on the lessons, but next week neither Jake or I will be here. So you won't, if you tune in at 10 o'clock, there's no one that's going to be here. But we will be back the following week on. So we're not here on the 26th or the 28th, but we will be back on the 2nd of June and we'll update our Twitch page so you can see that. Is Python good if you want to be a data analyst? Yep, it's fantastic for that. It's one of the main uses people have Python for. It's a great language to manipulate data. So if you are interested in being a data analyst, so this is a really good intro course that you can start with, and then you can move on to other courses that go a bit more in depth into Python. Okay, so there's no more questions there. There's no more questions um, on Twitch. Again, if you haven't, if you have the time to go back onto this video as many times as you want. But for me, will you be available during the week for questions? So put questions onto Slido. I check this probably every evening. So if you have any questions, if you're stuck with anything, put it on Slido. I'll reply, and then on the question there'll be a little reply, and if you click on that at the evening, I'll have probably replied. So if you have any questions, please have a look. Is this for all ages? So we designed the course for anyone 13 and above. So, I mean, if you're 13 and below and you understand it, that is fine by us. I didn't understand the all ages for the question. Okay, so the way I would write it is how I've written it before. So this is the answer that I would go with. So what we're saying is if the first age is the same as the second age, and if the first age is the same as the third age, then print you are all the same age. This question, I think, might be the most popular question we've ever had. So if you, yep, this is how you do it below. You highlight your text and you press Control/ or Command/ if you are on a Mac. So any questions saying could you, have a go, try it yourself, see what happens. Okay, I think we're done. I think our Slido is free. So have a good week and I shall see you all not next week, but the week after on the 2nd of June, where will we be going through for loops. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you have a really good weekend and we'll see you next week. Bye.